All right, we're live. Hey, Ian, how are you?
Hey, Obi, how are you?
All right, so we have a lot that we're going to be talking about today. And, COVID numbers are going up in the United States. And President Trump took to Twitter to assure Americans that the numbers going up is on an illusion, and because as Americans we've been testing a lot more, and he's told his people to pull back on testing. That's like a messed up logic, but that's how the president thinks. And I think him asking his people to pull back on testing has affected, because I know a friend that went to go do the antibody test. I've done it twice. It came back in 2 days. His has been taking a lot longer to get back. So it's affecting a lot of things. So we have a lot to talk about today, and I will rather not. I will talk about everything today with you, Ian, because you're so knowledgeable. And like I keep making fun. I'm like, okay, you are the executive producer of the show, man. Like you hook me up with all the dope guests, and I hope our viewers learn a lot today. And for everybody tuning in, welcome to the News with Obi. Ian is a former candidate of New York State Senate, and he has a lot to talk about today. I'm going to play the open for the show, and we'll take it from there. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the News with Obi. Hi, and I'm joined by Ian. He's a regular on this show. So, Ian, let's dive into it because we have a lot to talk about. So, Sunday afternoon, Georgia confirmed that the cases of COVID is about 167,000 over that, and the total of 3,000 people in Georgia have died from the virus. And I know we have a lot of other states that we've seen a spike in. We're talking about North Carolina, Mississippi, Arkansas, California, Kentucky, you name it, Texas, Florida. So talk to us, Ian. What is going on in Georgia? Because I know you spend some time in Georgia too.
I work in Georgia. I have a residence in Georgia. I have a second residence in Georgia. So yeah, Georgia is an interesting place. How interesting? The governor of Georgia is suing the mayor of Atlanta, which happens to be the capital of Georgia and also basically the black capital of the world, over her wanting to issue an ordinance, a city ordinance mandating the use of masks. And the governor's like, nah, hold on, we don't really need that. Mask, we're good. To the point that it was the case was going to be heard in Georgia Supreme Court today. It was scheduled to be heard today, and it was canceled last minute.
Oh, I didn't know Okay.
Yeah, it was canceled today, probably because common sense probably hit them upside the head and say, hey, we need to wear masks. The numbers have gone up exponentially in Georgia for a couple of reasons. Georgia, I can speak for Atlanta. Atlanta opened up in the end of April. The end of April. I mean, restaurants, tattoos, bowling alleys, gyms, all
they
that
opened up too soon.
Way too soon. New York was still in the midst of the shutdown. Georgia just opened up really quickly, which they felt that was the way of life. And then slowly but surely, case numbers started going up and up and up to the point where they are now. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, instituted a mask ordinance saying you have to wear masks. Something like you would see in New York. You can't walk in anywhere in New York without having a mask on. So Atlanta wanted to mirror that. And then the governor said, wait, sued her. Right. And part of the suit said she wasn't allowed to go on to do press conferences or speak on social media. That was in the suit. And if today is an indication
in court,
well, if they postponed it or they canceled the thing, the hearing, so that's any indication he may be pulling back, because I don't care how politicized the coronavirus may be, lives are lives, and the numbers going up, you can't hide that. I know people in Georgia who have driven around for days trying to find a testing facility.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Because the issue with the test happens early in the day. So if you have to work, I know one person specifically who's the essential worker, so they can't get tested until after they get off of work. So we're talking about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. By the time 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon rolls around, there isn't a place for them to test.
Yeah.
They went 4 or 5 days trying to find a test, and then I know
But
someone else.
Trump, we've seen, has refused to wear a face mask for the longest. I mean, he just started wearing a face mask as of last week, and he took a picture of himself and he said, "What is it? There's nobody more patriotic than me, your favorite president," because he wore a face mask for the first time, and his national security advisor tested positive for coronavirus.
We have to be mindful for using 45. I'm not going to call him the president. I'm not going to say you're a president. I'm not going to say my president. We have to be careful of using 45s as a benchmark of sanity.
Yeah.
From the beginning, from the start of the pandemic, he handled it poorly.
Right.
Saying that something we didn't need to worry about, to saying that it would be handled or be contained, that we didn't need masks, and when he realized the numbers, you couldn't hide the numbers. Oh, this is an issue, to the point where we don't need masks now. We need wearing masks. Long story short, I'm not telling other people what to do. As for me in my house, I really try not to listen to him because he's everywhere. However, there are people who do listen to him because he is still the president of the United States of America. So I'm glad that he finally started to wear a mask. Him taking credit for it, that's another thing, because he'll take credit for anything. He probably will take credit for the sky being blue. Because who he is as a person, and that's an issue right there. For the love of God, please vote him out. I'm in New York, we vote blue. But if you're one of the swing states, please vote him out. And I'm looking at you people in Philadelphia. Vote him out. All right. Anyway.
So, but okay. So, speaking of wearing a mask, and in the last 24 hours, we've seen this doctor that says she's Nigerian, but she's really from Cameroon, that went to med school in Nigeria, Dr. Stella Emmanuel. She is indeed a doctor. We're not going to take that away from her. She runs a clinic in Houston, Texas, but she has been all over. Say it again.
Behind the Walmart. The clinic.
Yeah, behind the Walmart. Yep, it is behind the Walmart. So, so she's been saying that hydroxychloroquine has been working. That she's treated like 350, and they haven't died. Her oldest patient is 92. Nigerians, doctors, from Nigeria, they've taken to the internet to debunk everything that she's been saying. You've heard about this lady, right?
I've heard about her recently from Twitter, and I understand that she claims to have treated or cured, I don't want to get caught up in the language, 300 or more patients. That's one of her many claims. Among other claims is that the United States government is using alien DNA for experiments and other things. So that first claim is married or grouped together with a bunch of other claims that are, for lack of a better term, out there. So that's number one. Number two, I'm a computer guy.
She also made a claim that NIH released a study that hydroxychloroquine works. NIH did not release any such study. And second of all, she could barely remember what NIH stood for when she was talking today. Like, people need to do their research. You can't just see a press conference and automatically think that it's legit. This woman, not only that, she's also a pastor that supposedly, she uses that as a front. So her clinic is besides her church. And anybody watching, if you saw that video, please chime in. What was your first thought when you saw it? What was the first thing that came to mind? My friend Nika says she says she saw the video, and Efua says she saw the video. So this news is spreading too quickly, and it's false news. So we need to, and not only that, she had the GoFundMe, which she took down. I went to go look at the GoFundMe, and it was taken down.
Well, can we spend some time on this?
Yes.
This is a lot to unpack. I
Yes.
wouldn't be surprised if GoFundMe suspended her account. The reason why I wouldn't be surprised because Donald Trump Jr., aka Don Jr., had his Twitter profile suspended for spreading or sharing misinformation about the drug. I'm not going to say the drug's full name because I'm going to butcher it. I'm just going to call it hydro blank blank blank. So anyway, Don Jr.'s spread misinformation about the drug, and because he's a public figure, which is scary in itself, Twitter decided to say, hey, let's not do this. We want to suspend your account. I'm glad Twitter's taking that stance. I'm certain that 45 is going to have the issue with that down the line. That's number one. So because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if GoFundMe took the same stance with this doctor. We already spoke about her other outside claims. That's fine. How about the claims of the 300 plus people she's treated? Do we see evidence? See, I'm not a doctor, but the medical community is very interesting and very funny and very particular about studies and trials. They publish everything. If you're in a lab and you sneeze, you have to record it 4 times.
Right.
So that being the case, has she published her her success in any medical journal whatsoever that has been backed or supported by anybody else in the medical community?
No, she has not.
We know that. So that's number 2. Number 3, the Trump campaign or Trump supporters like to roll out what they call their black supporters. They're prominent black supporters.
Right. Exactly.
And they're saying, and the reason why they do it is, okay, this person's black, so because they're black people need to follow them. We have Daryl Scott, who's a evangelical pastor. Candace Owens, who is a black conservative political pundit.
Didn't you say they put your business up? Didn't you say Candace Owens?
I shared it on a private social media channel. All right, so time out.
No, okay.
Audience, Obi and I have become friends. So because of that, she's privy to my personal social media account. And because she's privy to my private social media account, there's information that I share amongst friends that she's privy to. And in my past, I may or may not have had a relationship with someone whose name I just spoke, and I'm going to leave it at that. You didn't.
It was a joke.
I can't lie though. So it wasn't a joke. However, we all make mistakes. Anyway, moving right along. Where was I? It's hot in here. Anyway,
back to Stella Emanuel.
There's a complicated what's it called? Diamond and Silk. There's a comedian. There's 2 brothers. They're like really buff. Well, anyway, so they're like, oh, because they're black, you have to listen to them. These people don't speak for us.
Yeah. They don't speak for everybody. They don't speak for the black.
This doctor has been included. I include this doctor in this grouping, so this doctor doesn't speak for people of color. Doesn't speak for the medical community. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I've had my share of medical issues, but I am not a doctor. I will say firsthand that I have friends who have been treated with hydro blank blank blank, the medication that I can't pronounce because medication. Yes, that medication is prescribed often to people who suffer from lupus.
Right.
So it's a widely prescribed. I don't even say widely because I know how widely it is, but I know it's prescribed to people who have lupus. So if A implies B and B implies C, if you have this medication prescribed to you because you have lupus, therefore you shouldn't contract the coronavirus. I know people.
So they were using it as a prophylactic, you think?
That's what they're saying. So they're saying, if they're saying that this medication prevents the coronavirus, if you take the medication, you shouldn't receive the coronavirus. I know for a fact that I know people who've taken the medication for lupus who've actually contracted COVID-19.
Right.
Again, I believe my mother took it for lupus.
Took it for lupus, right.
I can't think of everybody, but I know 2 people who have lupus who've taken it, and those 2 people actually contracted
COVID. So it's not even effective as a prophylactic anyway.
in my outside opinion, as someone who's not in the medical field, I would say no.
Right. Okay.
And also, I would be very wary of touting it as a solution. I don't care what the current administration says. I mess with Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's my dude. What Fauci says goes.
Period.
If Fauci ain't I'm not there yet.
Period.
That's just where I am. That's my dude.
Pandemic 2.0. We're not doing that. Whatever Fauci says goes. I'm sorry.
Fauci's my dude. What up, Fauci?
That's it. So I hope this clears it out for everybody that was actually really thinking that this doctor was legit and saying that there's a cure has been found. So please, we got to do our research. We really do. So let's switch gears a little bit. So since the murder of George Floyd, we know we continue to see protests in different cities. I know New York might still be having a protest every day like they did at the beginning. But in cities like
we do. I can tell you reports are tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, they do. So in cities like Portland and Seattle, we continue to see the police responding to peaceful protests with violence. What's really going on here? What is the president doing? Why is he? I'll let you speak because
let's talk about Portland. All right. So Portland is not just the police. So the funny thing about hopefully, if you paid attention to the national news in the last week or two, I'm sure you've heard about what's going on in Portland. Right. Portland has been the epicenter of, I'm not going to say police, but law enforcement professionals versus protesters. The issue is these aren't police. And we got to go into this deeper. This isn't police. These are federal law enforcement agents, right? That are going in and tear gassing the protesters. And you would ask, why is the federal government there? Because President Trump sent them there. How can President Trump send federal law enforcement agents to a city? There's game around this. Part of the protest in Portland has contributed to the vandalization of I want to say it's a federal court. There's a federal court. So because the federal court was vandalized, graffiti, things like that, that falls into the purview of the federal protections. I don't know if it serves the agency. It's basically a federal agency that protects government buildings. I know this for a fact because I grew up in Central Islip, New York. There's a federal courthouse in Central Islip, New York. So there's federal protection agents that ride up and down the city or the town rather. Because they're going to protect federal offices. So because I want to say it's a courthouse, because the courthouse experienced vandalism, graffiti, protests, so on and so forth, it allowed President Trump to send in the Federal Protection Service. There is actual statute. There's a federal statute that allows for that. Now it goes deeper because they went in there to protect that federal building. The federal government is allowed to send other agencies to supplement the Federal Protection Service. So it sent, I know for a fact it sent the Transportation Service, it sent TCSA, Border Patrol, and other agencies. So they've gone in, they're wearing Army fatigues and tactical gear. So basically, this is how it was sanctioned. I'm sorry?
I said beating up the protesters.
Exactly. We got mothers jumping in called a wall of moms, trying to separate protesters from the federal agents. And you would figure the federal agents wouldn't attack the mothers, but they did because they're horrible. It got to the point that the mayor of Portland, the governor of Oregon, the two senators from Oregon have said, "Hey, we don't want this. We need these guys to leave." And the Trump administration said, "No, we're going to send them there." And then they're wearing fatigue. So now the armed services said, "Hey, we need these guys not to misrepresent themselves. Right. So at least let them stop wearing fatigues." But they didn't even do that. So basically, Trump has a secret police at his disposal, and he invaded the city of Portland.
And Nika is asking, does Antifa play a huge role in what's happening in Portland?
I'm gonna give you a real rap of what's happening in Portland. The reason why this is happening in Portland, Trump needs to win. This is one really big photo op.
Right.
Because they're taking pictures, and the narrative that's being spun is Trump is saving our cities.
Right.
From urban violence. Because there's been violence across America in major cities. New York's happened, Chicago's happened, Houston's happened, but Portland is his stage. So they're taking photo ops of the armed services, the Federal Protection Agency, Border Patrol, blah, 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 defending American cities.
Yeah, and if you don't want Biden's America will look like this. People are forgetting that those pictures are being taken in Trump's current America.
They're being taken from current America. Also, the issue is this has happened for the last 5 or 6 years. Back to the Ferguson issues, there has been an unjust correlation between protesting and an uptick in violence. And people think, well, because there's a lot of protesting, police forces are going to scale back, and because police forces scale back, there's going to be an uptick in violence. That theory has been debunked in every city except Baltimore, but Baltimore is slightly different. So that's not the case. But that, if you listen to this current administration, that narrative is the narrative that's being spun.
Yeah. What about Seattle? Is it the same kind of situation?
It's not as I don't want to minimize it because it's bad everywhere.
Yeah,
one person is bad. It's not at the magnitude of Portland. It's not the magnitude of Portland, but it's still happening.
Yeah,
it's happening in New York to the point that this is interesting. New York State legislature passed a law. Both the state and this New York City have passed laws or bills that have outlawed the chokehold.
They did, yeah.
They passed it recently. That was one of the bright lights after the protests. The chief of, I forget his title, but he's higher up. His name is Moynihan. He went on record and saying, "Hey, I have district attorneys who won't prosecute police officers who use chokeholds." None of the DAs came out and said anything. However, once you say in front of the microphone, it's already out in the ether. So now we have some police officers emboldened to use the same chokeholds that we fought to have outlawed.
Right.
During these protests or other areas. So it's bad everywhere.
And New York being a much more liberal state, a lot of states kind of follow what New York does. Really, like in terms of
they should, especially during the outbreak. Atlanta, or parts of Georgia, which is weird. Parts of Georgia reached out to New York for help. Cuomo went down to Savannah last week.
He did.
Governor Cuomo went down to Savannah last week to help. He sent mass to Atlanta because Andrew Cuomo is kind of the he's on the other side of the response of how to handle the response. You have Trump on one side, and then you have Cuomo on the other side. And I have my personal issues with Cuomo. However, I will say that New York.
I knew you would bring that up.
New York has handled the pandemic better than other states.
Yeah. And
it's one of the reasons why I can't go back to Georgia, because if I go to Georgia, I can't come back without quarantining for 14 days. But New York is like, nah, we go to everybody.
Right. And at one point, nobody wanted New York. Nobody wanted anybody from New York. So
exactly, you couldn't fly in. You were on that quarantine list. Now it's the other way around. New York's like, nah, we good. And even New York is opening up slowly, but even then they're starting to pull back. Okay, maybe we're doing this too quickly.
Yeah.
But the numbers are going down in New York.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mary Trump. Her tell-all book came out. Was it last week? Yeah, her tell-all book came out last week, and it sold about 1.3 million copies in its first week. And it has outsold Trump's 1987 Art of the Deal, which, as of 2016, sold only 1.3 million copies. So, Mary Trump's book, is it timely for November 3rd, or is she telling us things that we already know, like Trump, somebody took his SATs for him. He's not that smart. Like, what do you think?
I'm shocked. No, I'm not knocking Mary Trump. Mary Trump has a reason to have an issue. If I remember properly, I think Trump I don't want to use a bad word on your show, but Trump weaseled her father out of some money, which obviously affected her. So get your money. 1.3 is great, especially since a lot of people still out of work, so can't do anything. Read a book. I will say this: on July 28th, 2020, I believe most of us have already made up our minds on Donald John Trump. Whether you're for him or you're against him, at this point in history, you've already made up your mind. So
yeah, true, definitely, yeah.
Whether Mary Trump came out with a book, whether
right.
anybody comes out with a book, we've already made up our minds.
Right, exactly.
We see in a press conference, we know he's not the smartest person in the world. What was the acuity test he just took? Person, man, woman, camera, television, whatever it is.
He took like an IQ test, and oh my goodness, that was like the dumbest thing ever. He said they told me to repeat man, woman, camera, TV. If you can remember in that order, like how did we get here? How exactly did we get?
I have a 3-year-old nephew that can do that. He'll probably ask for a fruit snap afterwards, but he can still do it.
Nika has a question. Well, she is more like a comment. She's saying there is a campaign commercial here in Florida that shows a senior citizen house being broken into. The elderly lady calls the police, but no one answers. I saw that due to defunding the police, and it shows a senior citizen being attacked by the robber. Goes on to say that if you vote for Biden, this happens. I saw that. I saw it on YouTube. Can you believe that?
Oh, I can believe it. Because Donald Trump's president. I can believe anything. Last in a tweet, and I just want to, for those who don't know, because he's the president, anything that he tweets is considered official record.
Yeah.
So there's official record of him calling the coronavirus the China virus just this week. The same tweet where he said that he will no longer be Yankee Stadium. Let's debunk the myth right now. Police departments are operating on a budget that was previously passed. So any municipality, state, city, federal, well, not federal, but state or city that passed legislation that took away money from police departments in order to funnel them to other needing departments such as education, doesn't affect policing right now.
Right.
Doesn't affect policing right now. So people who were saying, the uptick in violence because of the police were defunded, that didn't happen yet.
Yeah, and even when the police is defunded, it doesn't mean they're not going to respond to crime.
No, because the police have enough money as it is.
They do.
The reason why we pick money back because police have blank checks. I think we spoke about this on the last show that I was on.
Right, exactly.
Police have blank checks. They can they'll buy new cars because I think there's not a study. I have friends who are cops. They say, yeah, if you're driving, you're going to be in an average of 3 or 4 accidents within a 10-year period.
Right. So the money that they have is used for buying new vehicles, buying stuff.
Everything. Police got the money. They good.
Yeah, they are good.
So no, that was just a highly politicized commercial in a red state. Florida's red as on anything.
Yeah.
Florida also has issues with their COVID-19 cases. So and a lot of the states that have issues with COVID-19 cases happen to be states run by the GOP. Rick DeSantis is the governor of Florida, was touted by Trump. Brian Kemp, who's the governor of Georgia, was touted by Trump. You see a lot of these red states having issues now because they were following Trump's lead, but some of them were pulling back. I almost guarantee you today's cancellation or postponement of that court case in Georgia will lead to Brian Kemp reversing his stance on the uses of masks because people in his state are dying. Yeah. As is the case in Florida.
Exactly. So in terms of schools, a lot of schools are contemplating if they need to go back in September, and a lot are pulling back their reopening plans. Parents who have to work have been panicking, what about how they're going to be able to handle their kids if they have to go back to school. New York is saying they don't have enough resources for kids to go back to school. What's really happening in New York? How are they preparing to help?
All right, so it's interesting that you brought up New York. I was part of an online hearing today with SUNY, State University of New York, which is the the state's university system. So shout out to SUNY Stony Brook. All the state schools fall under the purview of SUNY. And also the city college of New York, or CUNY, that falls on the SUNY as well. So that was about an hour and a half. It was SUNY officials with New York State senators and New York State Assembly people asking questions on behalf of their constituents. And one of the things that were brought up is that, hey, we don't know what we're doing yet. That's on a higher level. Some of them said we've transitioned to online learning. Okay, which is important. So right now they're going to stick to online learning, especially at least for the first semester. And then they also said things such on the lines of, "Hey, we've lost almost $1 billion in revenue because of out-of-state students, foreign students, and the loss of room and board." And this is a conversation for. But state institutions are really big revenue generators for states. The reason why tuition is so high is because every time, let's say it's like Alabama or something like that, says, "Hey, we need money. How can we get money? Let's raise tuition," because every time their mama goes to school. So you raise the tuition generator. New York State is operating at $1 billion loss due to what's happening and the people not enrolling in school and going moving board. So the funny thing is, there's a correlation between state tuition and private institution tuition. Private institutions like to think they're a little bit more prestigious than state institutions. I went to a state institution. I don't believe that to be true. Shout out to SUNY Stony Brook. So if the state tuition goes up, then private institutions go up as well. Yeah. So anytime the state needs more money and they raise the tuition, private institutions are like, "Hey, we can't be the same price as the state school. We got to go up anyway." But that's a conversation for another day. When it comes to K through 12. I'm actually going to be not involved. I'm going to an online Zoom conference with New York City Controller Scott Stringer and U.S. Representative-elect Jamal Bowman, who just beat long-term Representative Elliot Engel in New York. They're doing a Zoom conference talking about what to do, what they're going to do through K through 12. Bowman's a former middle school principal, so this is his heart.
So what they're going to do does not include opening up, having kids.
They're talking about opening it up. They're going to talk about everything is conjecture. Right. In New York City, that conversation comes from the chancellor of New York City Schools, who's an employee of the city. Therefore, he listens to the mayor. However, New York City's weird. New York State Education, the Board of Regents, is run by the governor. So the DOE, Department of Education, Board of Education, Department of Education is run by the mayor. It's a mayoral institution, but the New York State Regents is run by the governor. And a lot of people don't know Cuomo and de Blasio don't get along. So at what point will people in New York, parents in New York, know whether their kids go back to school or not? Within the next few weeks. Okay. I will say this, and this is going to go to another thing we got to talk about later. States are dependent on federal money right now.
They are, yes.
That was part of the conversation with the SUNY officials. They say, "Hey, we need money from the federal government." And then Cuomo came out and said, "Hey, listen, if we don't receive money from the federal government, not just for education, but for other things, we're going to get the money from somewhere. So we're going to raise money on tolls and other things." Yeah. So there's a domino effect because we need money from the federal government. But the problem is that bill is still being voted on.
Yeah, for anyone watching not in the state of New York, if you have any updates from your state on schools reopening, please feel free to type it in the comments, okay? So Ian, let's talk about voting. I mean, we can't talk enough about voting on November 3rd. We know that Democrats need to win 3 to 4 seats to take control of the Senate, and we know how important that is. Yeah. What states are those that make up those 3 to 4 seats that are up for grabs for Democrats, and is it looking good?
Well, I will say this. Just like there were Republicans who can lose their seats or lose their bid for elections, there were Republicans who can lose their seat for elections. There are also Democrats who can do the same thing. So we don't want to take that for granted. But right now, looking on the Republican side, I can give you about 3 or 4 races. You can tell that will help. Lindsey Graham, we all know who Lindsey Graham is. Lindsey Graham, who's a senator of South Carolina, is in a race against a black man named Jamie Harrison. That's a highly contentious race because there are a lot of black people in South Carolina.
You think he might lose to the black guy?
Yes. We're putting a lot of money, put a lot of time, a lot of energy and effort behind them. Also, there's already another black senator in South Carolina. Just so happens that Tim Scott just so happens to be Republican, but still a black guy. So they will vote for black. They will vote for black politicians in South Carolina, which wasn't always the case. Tim Cotton, who's the left's least favorite senator right now, because he's the one saying we shouldn't teach about slavery. The 1619.
What state is he in again? What state is he?
Arkansas. I don't think he has an issue, but I would love for him to be voted out, but I don't think he has an issue. In Georgia, always go back to Georgia.
Yeah.
There's a race right now. There's a senator named Loeffler, whatever. I can't pronounce her name properly. She was appointed because she had to fill in a vacancy by President Trump. She was accused of irregularities because she traded against stocks that dealt with the coronavirus epidemic. So it's like they knew that the coronavirus was coming before it actually hit. And so
that was in January, right?
That was like January or February, but it wasn't proven that she knew anything. Yeah, right. Anyway, she's up for re-election. So she won the special election. Now she's up for a full election, a general election. But Georgia's very interesting. So there's a Democratic governor. There's a Democratic candidate by the name of Warnock. He's a black preacher from Atlanta.
Okay.
The lead's kind of high, so that may be iffy. So I can see that go. Remember, she was never elected. People never elected her, so we don't know if the people actually want her.
Right.
That's why it's very iffy. There's one in Louisiana.
Okay.
Bill Cassidy.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say Louisiana, because even though it's a southern state, Louisiana has a Democratic governor. And Louisiana is interesting because Louisiana has a Democratic governor, and the Democratic governor is really close friends with the coach of the LSU football team who just won the national championship, Ed Ogeron.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about Louisiana, they care more about football than they care about anything else. Like football and gumbo.
Okay, I did not know that. Mm-hmm.
Governor Edwards is out here pulling Ed Ogeron, who's like he's the king of Georgia at this point. He's basically the lieutenant governor of Georgia, the de facto lieutenant governor of Georgia. So he's out here campaigning for people. So I can see that happen. I can see that that seat flip.
So far, the 3 to 4 seats up for grabs are Georgia, Arkansas.
Not Arkansas. Tim Cotton's not going to happen. So South Carolina, Georgia, and Louisiana. But there's something I want to say. Remember how I said earlier we have to be careful of Democrats losing their seats. Right. Alabama is scary. For those who don't know, Alabama had a special election 2 years ago. That was an election where they said that was won by black women because black women came out and voted. Yeah. And they ended up voting in Doug Jones. Right. The issue was Jeff Sessions was the former senator. But when Trump appointed him to be attorney general, Sessions had to vacate his seat. So they ran against Roy Moore, who was a racist, pedophile, blah, 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 just a bad person. And they ran against Doug Jones. But Alabama has been red forever. So I have friends who say they weren't flipping the seat. They were just voting against Roy Moore. It wasn't Alabama becoming blue. It was just Alabama saying, hey, we don't want Roy Moore here. And we'll take anybody but Roy Moore. So now we have Tommy Tuberville, who was a football coach, another football coach. He used to coach Auburn. Again, Louisiana, the South is really big. The South is really big on football. Alabama is huge. He ran against Jeff Sessions because Jeff Sessions, after he left, I think he got fired. After he got fired from being AG, that's the reason why we have Bar now. Yeah. He ran for his old seat. He ran the Republican primary. He lost narrowly to Tommy Tuberville because Trump came in and put money and power behind Tuberville, and he basically trashed Sessions in the media. Yeah. So we have to be very careful because Doug Jones may lose. So that may be a seat that the GOP gets back. Yeah.
Okay. So bottom line, you guys, we all need to go vote on November 3rd. When are we going to know if we're doing mailing votes or if we're going in person? When are we going to know?
State by state.
It's state by state.
State by state because board elections are governed by state.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing about us taking control of the House. We would know by November if we take control of the House. We will also know in November if we have a new president.
Of course, yeah.
When the new president comes in, the senatorial session starts in like mid-January.
Right.
Before the session starts, the president has to decide whether or not there's going to be a filibuster.
Mm.
What's called it's a designation when you vote where you need a supermajority, meaning you need 60 votes or 61 votes in order for legislation to pass the Senate floor. It used to be just a simple majority. Simple majority is 51-49, 50-48, whatever. But now it's filibuster. It's a supermajority, which means you need at least 60. This is important. This is the reason how come the GOP was unable to overturn Obamacare, because they didn't have to.
Exactly. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
If the Democrats take over, they're not going to have a supermajority. They're going to have a simple majority. If they have a simple majority, then we're going to need Biden to say, "Hey, don't do the filibuster," because then they only need 51 votes or whatever to pass legislation. Because if this wins and everything works copacetically when the House of Representatives, Democrats will have the executive office of the president, and they will have both legislative office, which is Senate and the House of Representatives. Then they can do real legislation. They can roll back everything Trump and the GOP have done the last 3.5 years.
So speaking of schools, yeah, Nika is saying that Pinellas County just approved to open schools August 24th. That's Florida, right? Yeah, that is Florida.
I'm going to say this: they can open when they want to. Let some of these cases get high. They're going to cancel real quick.
They can't use the school kids as an example, as a scapegoat.
There was a governor or a senator, I forget if it was governor or senator, where he got caught on record in the interview saying, "Hey, kids are going to go, they're going to get sick, but they'll bounce back." He's on record.
Nah,
I forget where he was.
That's
but
right.
It's going to seem to happen this year. If those cases go to schools.
Yeah.
So and the thing is, the South goes to school first.
Yeah, let's dive into the HEALS Act. We all know that what the $1 trillion that they $1 trillion bill that they're discussing right now is supposed to cover schools. It's supposed to cover the next stimulus check that people are going to get. It's supposed to cover unemployment reduction.
It doesn't cover schools.
Say it again.
The GOP's $1 trillion bill doesn't cover schools.
They're saying they don't want it to cover schools?
It doesn't cover schools. In order for them to, they're saying that they want money down. If states want money from schools, they should pull the money that they receive from the CARES Act. That's the difference between the GOP's bill, which is $1 billion, and the Dems bill, which is $1 trillion, and the Dems bill, which is $3 trillion. The Dems actually have money for states for education.
Right.
The GOP doesn't.
Right. And I know de Blasio was saying today that if they don't get that money from the federal government, that a lot of layoffs are going to happen. He said about 22,000 layoffs are going to happen. That they are depending. New York State is depending on that federal funding. So I know the unemployment reduction, they're going from 600, the additional 600. They were debating bringing it down to 200, which really doesn't make sense. It should be at least 4. You can't go from 6 to 2, right? So when are we? I know this is still up for debate. When are we supposed to really find out?
They have to meet halfway, and they may not meet halfway because half between 2 and 6 is 4.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if they met like 350. I wouldn't be. I'm more concerned. Yeah, unemployment is great. I'm more concerned about the state funding. They have to get money towards funding. And then Bernie said something. Bernie Sanders. We all know who Bernie is. Bernie reads something on Facebook talking about how they have about $6 or $7 billion in defense spending in this bill. The Corona bill had like $6 7 million in the other. 1.5 billion goes towards a federal building. Something called a couple of F-35 airplanes. Blah 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 blah. Which is still,
and they don't want to get
less than
that need it.
they're going to roll it in, but I'll be pragmatic. It's less than 1% of their money. But the fact that they're giving anything towards this when that money can go towards states that are really in need is an issue. What else does the deal? What else? What else? Education's jacked up.
The
small business. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, the $1,200. Both sides are proposing the same thing. The GOP is tightening up the restrictions for it, and then saying if you get more per dependent, but there's a cap there. The Dems version says the cap is $6,000. What else? Small businesses, they will be able to apply for the small business protection, the paycheck protection, but even that number will be capped. That's Republican side. GOP says extend it further. Actually, no, the GOP doesn't have anything for the Democrats don't have anything for the small business protection. They're more concerned about education, state funds, and unemployment benefits. Both sides agree on the stimulus check, but that's a little here and there. Education funding, the GOP wants the money to come from the CARES Act, which is kind of depleted. Meanwhile, the Dems want to give $100 billion towards educational funds, which is important because I said I was on a court earlier today that the state of New York, which is one of the largest state-run university systems, lost $1 billion. And cities need that money for education as well. What about the inner cities that if the kids stay home, they need Chromebooks to learn, things like that. Or you need infrastructure. If they have to go back to school, we need to put plexiglass around the table, stuff like that. That costs money. The desk, that costs money. So they need to find.
I think it's better not to let the kids go back. Not now.
And I understand both sides, and I hate the term both sides because even that's bad. Because you have to worry about daycare if you're a parent. Yeah. A lot of parents treat school as daycare because that's true. They need someone to watch their kids while they are working. However, you don't want to risk that because kids can take it to you. You can take it to other people. Next thing you know, we're shut down again. Mind you, we're still in wave number 1. There was purported wave number 2. We're still in wave number 1.
Still the first wave. This is wow. This is the first wave. So if you got thanks for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in tonight. If you have any questions for Ian, he's very knowledgeable. I learn from him every time he's on my show. If you have any questions for him, please feel free to type it in the comments. I'll like to bring him back as much as possible on the show whenever he has time. So Ian, let's kind of finalize by talking about how the Black Lives Matter movement could possibly reshape the 2020 elections. What are your thoughts on that?
If it galvanizes people to vote, that would be the best thing that it could ever do.
I think so.
And it will. If we look back at the 2016 election, it would always be classified as an election between two candidates that no one really wanted.
Right.
If people came out and voted, especially people of color in swing states, Hillary would have won. I know this to be the fact in Pennsylvania. If people would have voted in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, that would have swung the state of Pennsylvania. Ohio would have swung Ohio. People in Cleveland would have voted. I'm a New York person, through and through.
New York
blue.
Right.
Blue. New York. When you vote in New York, you're really voting for senators, representatives, city, state, local officials. Because you're gonna vote blue. That's right. Atlanta's different. Atlanta could be swung. It's gonna be hard, but it's going to. Georgia could be swung, but it's going to be harder. There are swing states. So if the Black Lives Matter, which has where people have issues against, talk about, it's run by Soros. No, Black Lives Matter is not an organization. It's an idea. It's a movement saying, hey, people of color, Black people are tired of being mistreated and killed. It's not run by anybody. I never met George Soros. I've met people that from the BLM organization, but I've met them like a coffee shop. I mean, I've marched. You and I have been on a march together.
Right. How is Black Lives Matter funded? Because there was some kind of controversy about them being funded by Democrats.
All right. So Black Lives Matter, the organization, the incorporated organization.
Yeah, and I've donated to them too. So
there's an incorporated organization, BLM. Some people say that it's not an organization because it's not a 501c3. It's a corporation. There were rumors, not rumors, but there are saying that it's been supported by people like George Soros and other people. I can't speak to the organization because I believe in the movement. I don't care about the organization. As I said, you and I have been in a protest together. We've been in a march together, and we scream Black Lives Matter. We didn't reach out to this organization.
No, we did not.
And there are many people who do the same thing. We don't reach out to the organization.
Right.
We're not there for the organization. We're there because we're Black and our lives matter too.
Right.
But they look for anything to politicize, and BLM became one of those things. But going back to the original question, if it prompts people to vote, that would be the best thing ever. Because if we could vote people out, you can vote the politicians who don't have our best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Vote people in who purport to have our best interest at heart. Because you can say one thing, it's all about your record. We vote them in, see how they do. If they do great, we keep them. If they don't do well, we vote them out too.
Exactly.
If it gets people to vote, that'll be the best thing that it could ever do. And we've also seen it on a local level inspire legislation on state and city levels. I'm speaking for New York, and I'm not just New York, across the country. And inspired legislation in Louisville, which is weird. It inspired legislation in Louisville, yet Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron has yet to indict the murderers of Breonna Taylor.
It probably won't happen, Ian. You know that.
Oh, it's not going to happen. It's not. The only way. My question is this: I don't know what the statute of limitation is on that. I don't think there's a statute of limitation on murder. Okay. In theory, he could be voted out. They can vote somebody else in to be AG.
Yeah.
Bring up charges. Okay, this is all conjecture. However, most terms are 4 years? He's been in for at least a year. I want to say he got elected in 2018. I could be wrong. So he has 2 or 3 years left. In theory, he could be voted out. Someone else could be voted in, and they can bring up charges again.
Okay. So when the next person comes in, they can still bring up the Breonna Taylor case.
If it's murder, because there isn't a statute of limitations for murder.
Right. And people are actually, Sam Law is saying, "Hey, Ian."
Hey, Sam.
And my friend Nika is saying, "Yes, I'm a single mother, no alternative income or daycare is scheduled to start kindergarten. Do I quit my job and move in with a family member who is willing to take me in? Right now, her son goes to daycare while she's at work, and she's an essential worker, and she's saying that she does not know what to do, and she's in Florida."
Again, the pandemic isn't easy on anyone. This is not something to prepare for. It's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
I understand the argument saying, hey, kids, educational systems, schools are a prime source of daycare.
Yeah.
You can work while your kid's in school, while your children are in school. I get that. I'm not taking that away from anybody. But if you're also a parent, I would think that you want your children to be safe.
Yeah. It's a tough situation.
It's a dicey situation whatsoever, all around. The issue is the coronavirus or the pandemic has become politicized, and it shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And politicians are the ones who are determining whether or not children go back to school.
But Nika, do you feel safe? Your son's still going to daycare? I know some parents probably won't, with the virus. And I know you're an essential worker. Do you feel safe him still going to daycare? All right, she's going to respond. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I know there's some people that are in that I can't really see, but Ian has been great supporter of the News with Obi. Whenever I call on him, he's always willing to come and share his knowledge on the show. And like I said, I learn from him each time he comes on the show. He's a go-to person. If you need to ask him any questions, I am going to put up his social media, Ian Harris NYC. You can always reach out to him. He's really good at responding right away. And most importantly, you guys, before we leave, Ian, do you have something else that you want to add?
trying to think, is there anything else that we didn't talk about? I think we covered everything.
Yeah, we covered everything. Nika is saying her son's daycare is very safe. They wear masks, kids and staff while inside. Okay.
Oh, can we talk about people not wearing masks? I'm sorry. That's what I want to ask.
That's what the show is about.
Yeah.
You're not wearing
we talk about people. What is wrong with folks?
You played yourself. Like, I don't understand. I understand if you know, no, I don't understand.
I don't either. We got people talking about, there are stores saying, hey, if we don't vote, if we don't wear a mask, it's a violation of our rights, and we're not going to wear a mask. Listen, the coronavirus can kill people. If it doesn't kill you, it can be passed on to someone else who may die. Yeah. If a mask can stop, it can slow down, not even stop fully, but if it can slow down the spread and kill less people, why would you not want to do it?
Yeah.
I have a family member. I'm not going to express how close a family member he or she may be, but a family member who has people who've had the virus, and also have people or medical professionals in their family, immediate siblings, who's going on a tangent saying, hey, you shouldn't wear masks. And I'm going to say something. This doesn't represent Obi's view. This is my view. A lot of people think this is only a white thing. Only white people are arguing about not wearing masks. My family member is as black as the ace of spades. He's out here saying, hey, let's not wear a mask. Wear a mask. I love New York. I'm in New York through and through. You can't walk into a store without wearing a mask. They got signs saying, where is your mask?
Exactly.
But can I say idiot? We have idiots like Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, suing the mayor of Atlanta for saying, hey, you got to do the same thing that New York is doing, but New York is a benchmark.
Yeah.
New York got hit really bad in the beginning. Really bad in the beginning.
Yeah.
The curve has flattened. It's not flattened fully, but it's flattened a lot more than it was in the beginning. New York is a benchmark of how to operate, even more so than California or Illinois.
March.
They did it was shutting down. I'm sorry.
The months of March and April were really dark in New York. Each one of us knew somebody that died from COVID, somebody that had COVID, someone that was fighting for their life in the hospital from COVID. So I think we learned, like when I say it was really dark in New York, you had to be here to feel it. So I have goosebumps just thinking about it. It was crazy. So
I'm gonna keep it real rap. I was in Atlanta at the time and I couldn't fly home.
I know. I remember.
Because it was so bad. And then every day on Facebook, I mean, pastors died. I got friends who died, friends of friends who died. My mother's calling me. My mother's from New York, but she lives down in Georgia now, saying she had friends die. It was really bad.
It was. So we learned.
And then, New York had
this whole not wearing face masks. We don't get that. We don't play that here. And
you know what I mean? They sort of Obama meme, like, man, I forgot my face mask. It happens to me all the time. I will walk out the door like, wait, let me get my face mask.
It's like when you don't have a mask and you walk in somewhere, people look at you like, excuse me.
I try not to be a violent person. Deep down, I try to love everybody. But it takes everything in me not to want to kick somebody in the neck for not wearing a face mask. And I'm not saying violence is wrong. Don't be violent. But just wear a mask. They're cheap. They're really, really cheap. And if you have a mask, wear a bandana. Do something.
You can have them made for you. My friend in Fort Sam, she makes these nice masks, and $12 a pop. You can get if you're trying to represent the culture, you can get the Ankara mask made. However you want.
Every store I've seen has masks. I was in Walmart the other day in Hanes, the people that make T-shirts and underwear.
Yeah,
they have masks. They have masks.
Oh wow!
It's a cloth from the underwear that they repurpose as mask.
Whatever works, man.
Wear a mask, please. And if you don't do it for your parents, do it for your grandmama.
I know. Nika is saying her co-workers hated her because she reported them for not wearing a mask. Good. Let them hate
on everybody. I am snitching on everybody. I got a funny story for snitching before we leave. Yeah. So I'm a diehard sports fan. Diehard. Like, I'm a Knicks fan. I'm a Jets fan. Or I'm no longer a Jets fan because the Jets owner is racist. He's the newest ambassador to Britain, and he said racist and misogynistic comments against staffers. So I'm no longer a Jets fan as of this week, and I'm a fan of the Seattle Kraken. Anyway, so a big NBA fan.
Yeah.
I forget who Lou plays for. Los Angeles Clippers shooting guard Lou Williams. The NBA is playing everybody in the bubble, so they have everybody in Florida at like Disney World in a bubble. They can't leave. In order for you to come in, you got to quarantine for 14 days before you, 10 days before you get scary. Blah 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 blah. Lou unfortunately had a death in his family, so he had to leave. He had to leave the bubble. The bubble hasn't recorded any coronavirus cases within the bubble. None. Okay. The bubble is the safest place on earth right now. He left to go to the family funeral. I think it was the grandfather in Atlanta because he's from Atlanta.
Okay.
He got caught at Magic City.
Oh, I saw that. And they were asking, what is Magic City?
For those who don't know, Magic City is one of the most popular gentlemen's clubs.
Exactly.
Gentlemen's clubs in the world. And mind you, I spent a lot of time in Atlanta. My apartment may be a mile away from Magic City, maybe 2. Oh, wow. Not too far. Not too far. I've never been to Magic City, but I've heard stories.
Magic City is open during the time.
Oh yeah, Atlanta. I told you, Atlanta opened early. Atlanta was opening. You could have got a tattoo in Atlanta in April. But anywho, so he went to Magic City for the wings. Now, in fairness, I've heard the wings of Magic City are incredible. I've heard they are phenomenal. Also, in fairness, he eats the wings there a lot, because so much so that the wings are named after him.
Oh, he does eat the wings there a lot.
The wings are named after him. They're the Lou Will Wings. His name is Lou Williams. They're called the Lou Will Wings.
Oh.
So I'm not saying he's lying. What I'm saying is he went to the strip club. He left the safest place on earth to go to the strip club. Yeah, Sam said what a dummy. He a big dummy. And the only reason he got caught up there was there's a new rapper named Jack Harlow who took a photo of him.
Right.
Put it on Instagram like, yo, I'm in the club with Lou Will. And Lou probably said, hey, take that down. But it was too late because once you post on the internet, it's there. Yeah. Then Jack was like, all right, cool. I'm going to go down for the homie. It's like, oh, that's an old photo. That wasn't recently. That was an old photo. I dismiss him. But the reason why he got caught, because of the mask. The NBA issued special mask that you can only get from the bubble. And that was the mask that he was wearing in the photo. So we knew it wasn't a new photo.
So, right. It was a new photo. Exactly.
So even when he was messing up, he was still wearing a mask. So wear a mask, people. Wear a mask.
Did he do any kind of test to see if
he got quarantined? He's quarantined for 10 days.
Okay, good.
He got quarantined for 10 days. Off the bat.
Yeah, and Sam Law is saying, "What a dummy." That's
big dummy. I mean, he went for his grandfather's. I want to say grandfather. Went for his grandfather's funeral. If he likes the wings, that's cool. My thing is, hey, if the wings are that great, can you order them on Grubhub? Because the next time in Atlanta, I'm gonna order them on Grubhub. I have no reason to go to the gentleman's club.
Right.
Yeah, that was very interesting. So
I mean, this is a dumb question, but are the strippers wearing masks at the gym?
I just told you I don't go to the gentleman's club. I don't know what they do with Obi.
It's a mile from your apartment. What are you talking about, Ian?
I don't go to the clubs. You can't get me in trouble. I don't go to these establishments. If I want wings, I'm gonna go to Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm gonna bake them myself. Try to get me in trouble. I know your friends. What are you trying to do?
Oh, you can go to Hooters.
Again, I'm gonna go to Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, and actually, Hooters. There's a thing in Hooters, but there's another one called Twin Peaks. That's what's in Atlanta. Twin Peaks.
That's in Atlanta.
Now I've been to Twin Peaks. The reason why I went to Twin Peaks, my office is right next to Twin Peaks, and I didn't know what Twin Peaks was. Twin Peaks is a double entendre. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Now I gotta go research Twin Peaks.
I went to Twin Peaks for lunch and walked in like, oh, I can't come back here anymore. I go to Publix. Believe it or not, one of the best chickens you're ever going to get in Atlanta is from the Publix supermarket. Any Publix makes great chicken, hands down. If you got a party, don't even fry the chicken. Go to Publix.
It's a Southern grocery store, isn't it?
Yes, Publix makes the best chicken, hands down. Cold, hot, whatever. Go get yourself some Publix fried chicken. It will change your life.
You don't need to go to the Gentleman's Club. You don't need to
go to Magic City. You don't need to go to Hypnotize. You don't need to go to Sue's Rendezvous. They close Sue's. You don't need to go to 112 with the Players Dwell. Go to Publix and wear a mask.
All right, you guys, please wear your mask. Please.
Mama, I never been to 80s clubs. I promise. I never been to 80s clubs. No.
Nika's son said, "Yep." I'm talking. I guess referring to Publix. You know, the chicken wings.
Your
but,
Publix changed your life.
You guys, please, vote November 3rd. Wear your mask. Stay safe. Don't listen to anybody telling you that hydroxychloroquine is a cure for COVID. There's no cure for it yet. Vote again November 3rd, and
please vote. Please.
Yeah, it's important. November 3rd is a monumental, pivotal moment in
like 98 days at this point.
It's 98 days. Yeah, we're 98 days away. And Biden said that he will choose his vice this week or next week.
He just said, I didn't hear that.
Right before we came on the show today, he did put out that announcement.
Well, it makes sense because the convention's supposed to happen around now. They canceled the RNC. So if they canceled RNC, and the DNC said they weren't going to do a convention. So it makes sense. It's around that time. Because they also, Notre Dame canceled the in-person debate. The debate at Notre Dame University. Or the University of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So it's around that time. It's time for debates. It's time for running mates. Well, we already know Trump's running mate is Pence. But it's time for Biden to announce his running mate. We're getting close. 98 days. It's around the corner. Please vote. Please register.
Yeah.
Register.
Yeah, Sam saw it too. She's saying, yep, just before the show, he did announce
it. I'm going to introduce you to Sam. You need Sam on the show. Sam is one of the smartest, most astute, political, social, community activists out there. She's a friend of Jackie Burbridge. She's a friend of Jackie Burbridge. Actually, she worked on Jackie's campaign.
Oh, nice. Okay. Jackie's also a regular on the show.
So yeah, Sam's.
Yes.
Sam's up.
Connect us on Facebook.
Got you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in, and tune in again next week. I try to do this weekly, just to keep all of us informed but not inundated with the news, and that's the mantra, logo, slogan for the News with Obi. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate you. Be well and be safe. November 3rd. Happy evening, everybody. Bye.